Okay, so welcome to this career conversation with Loudoun Water. We are excited to have you here. I'm Miss Barnes, excuse me, and I'm here with my colleagues from Independence, Briar, and Stonebridge. And I'm also here with Erika Cuevas, who is from Loudoun Water. She is actually the outreach coordinator for Loudoun Water. And she's going to talk to us about Loudoun Water as well as the many positions that make up Loudoun Water. But first, Erika, we'd love to hear a little bit more about you. I know that you've been in environmental education for 10 years and you went to Radford, but if you could tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are, and if you had some changes along the way or advice from people.
Sure. Can you all hear me just to make sure?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you so much. Yes. My name is Erika Cuevas. I'm the outreach coordinator at Loudoun Water. So a little bit of background. I have been working at Loudoun Water now for about 10 years. And so I actually started working there before I finished my undergrad. So what I did is that I went to a community college, Northern Virginia Community College, for 2 years. And I was living at home with my parents. I grew up in Ashburn, went to Stonebridge High School, so I'm from the area. And so after I graduated, I went to Nova for 2 years, got my associate's degree there. And once I decided a little bit more of what I wanted to do for my 4-year degree, I transferred to Radford University. There, I lived off campus. I finished 2 years there, and I finished with my public relations and marketing degree there. And during that time, what was wonderful is that while I was at Northern Virginia Community College, I was a full-time student, but I was also able to work because I was living at home. And so I started working at Loudoun Water while I was getting my associate's degree. And so I have been in different departments within the organization before I got to where I am now, ultimately, which is the communications department and where I do outreach and can practice my degree with public relations. And so it was a really great opportunity because while I was working and going to community college at the same time, I had made some good networking connections at Loudoun Water. And so when it was time for me to leave the area in Northern Virginia and move down to Radford, Virginia, it was a great opportunity for me to come back and work part-time, or I guess you can say an internship or part-time whenever there were holiday breaks. So for Christmas break, I would come back, and usually that's when staff would take vacations. So because I was already familiar with different departments and had an idea of what was going on, I was able to come back and kind of sit in for people who had to leave or had vacation time. So it worked out for me because I had a part-time job I could come home to for Thanksgiving or summer breaks, which was really nice to be able to have a job to come back to. So I was really fortunate to be able to have that networking opportunity. And then when I graduated, I really, really liked the organization and the staff. So I made the decision to come back full-time and work in something more related in my field, which is communications and outreach. So that's a little bit of background on me. Does anyone have any questions about that journey?
I mean, you couldn't have answered that question better. I mean, I had no idea the background, but with 20% or more of our kids going to Northern Virginia Community College out the door, it's really great to hear, how that was your experience, and the fact that you work part-time actually, parlayed itself into a long-term career for you.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm from the area. I'm familiar with, having to figure out classes that then have to match with the 4-year institution that you transfer to. So a piece of advice that I think was good is making sure that you contact or make sure there are connections between the university you'd like to go to, if you know already, once you're at Nova, to make sure you're taking the proper classes and you don't lose any credits. Because I know that there were friends that went through similar things, but they weren't sure what they wanted to do yet. So they had to end up taking double credits or things that didn't match as well. So my biggest recommendation is to get the best out of community college is making sure that you have a plan for what you'd like to do once you've finished there. because that was really helpful. So thinking of it a little bit backwards, once you have a list of all the classes needed for the degree you're interested in, kind of work backwards to see what Nova can fill in. And they've got amazing programs and partnerships with Virginia schools.
And it sounded like you really made the most out of, making connections at Loudoun Water and, figuring out which areas were of interest to you, and then like keeping those relationships going, which is kind of hard to do. A lot of times you might do an internship and, not have that ability or connection to continue on that relationship.
Right. And when some people have asked me before, well, how did you get into water or wastewater? Because I didn't grow up thinking I want to work for the water company. I want to say that most of my colleagues don't think that way, but it's such an essential part of our everyday lives, and it's so important. Within our organization at Loudoun Water, we're located in Ashburn is our main offices. If you've driven by the big Redskins practice field, the big white bubble, we're right next to them. And so what is located on our campus is our offices, as well as our wastewater treatment facility right there. And it's such an essential part of our everyday lives, water, right? We don't think about it too much, but I feel really excited to be able to help our community and kind of teach our customers the importance of water. And so I'm really glad that in the last years, I've really been able to do that.
So what actually does Loudoun Water do? And then what
Great
type
question.
of roles make up how it gets done?
Sure. Yeah. So we manage drinking water services and wastewater services. What I mean by that is that for most of the county, well, most of the eastern part of the county, where the Dallas airport is and where it's more populated within the county, what we call our central system, meaning that all those drinking water pipes are connected. So that water is a water coming to all of your faucets and my faucets. So whether it's at school or at a store or a restaurant, all that water coming to our taps is considered drinking water, including even fire hydrants. They're all connected into the same central system of drinking water. So we're the water company. We're the company that makes sure that that water is clean, it's safe, it's treated. And so there are many different departments and many different types of careers within the water industry. That is just one aspect. We have many different departments within the organization. I work in communications. I used to work in customer relations, where those staff talk directly to customers. So if you have a question on your water bill, you can call us. We can help you through figuring out if maybe you have a leak or there's something going on with your bill. Or in this case right now with COVID, we're helping with kind of some relief for payments and things like that for people who have lost their job or need extended payment arrangements. So there's lots of different things going on in the background in different departments. We have some physical jobs, if you're working out in line maintenance, dealing with pipes themselves, figuring out, the age of a pipe and when it's time for it to be replaced, to anyone working in finance. If you are more interested in the numbers aspect, there's so many different departments. We have IT and we have a GIS department. We have all sorts of different departments, and it really takes all of these different departments and different types of skill sets to work together in the background to make it look very seamless. Water is something that we don't think about very much or have to worry about. We know that when we turn on the tap, it's there and it's safe to use. And then when it goes down the drain, meaning whenever we flush a toilet or whenever we take a shower or bath, think about all the water you might have already used just today. There's a lot of things that if water didn't come from that tap one day, it would be a problem, right? Or if there was an issue where it wouldn't be able to go down the drain, that'd be another problem. So in the water industry, there are two sides. There's drinking water, which is all the water that comes to our taps. Then wastewater is everything that goes down the drains. So those two require two types of treatment. The water that comes to our taps usually comes from a natural resource. And for us in Northern Virginia, does anyone want to guess or already know where we get our drinking water from? What's the main water source? You can do it in the chat, or if you think you might know, where do you think we get our water from in Northern Virginia? Reservoir, Potomac River. Excellent, yes. So the Potomac River is our drinking water source, which I feel like a lot of people know that, and then a lot of people may not know that. The water that comes to your tap comes from the Potomac River. So there's a whole process necessary for us to pump the water out of the river, treat it, be able to use it, and then when it goes down the drain, we clean it again and we pump it back out into the river, most of it. And so that's just the overview of what we do. But like I said, there's so many different careers and paths that our staff has taken to get to where they are now.
So you mentioned like the linesmen. Does everybody have a college education, or are they like tradesmen that are involved?
Some are. Yeah, some are. So it really depends what line of work, because like I said, there's lots of different things. We have line maintenance, or we have plant operators, which I think is great because we're actually in the industry, there is a need for more plant operators in the water industry. So that would be the person who works at the treatment facility. And within that, there are different types of skill sets necessary in educational backgrounds. So some areas do need a bachelor's degree, some just need a high school degree. Some are great because you can actually get certifications while you're on the job in order to improve and advance in what you need to move up to other types of jobs. So there's all sorts of different careers.
You mentioned COVID and helping customers who may need a payment plan or some type of grace period. How has COVID impacted you in terms of like work, or people working from home, or how has it changed the way you work?
So right now I'm home. So I'm working from home currently, and I have been since last March. And so most of our staff that was in our administrative building in Ashburn is working from home. There's about maybe a third of our staff that is not working from home, and really nothing has changed for them. That would be people working in our laboratories, people working in our treatment plants, or line maintenance or field service, which are the staff that are out on the Loudoun Water trucks doing maintenance and things like that, repairs on water pipes and meters and all sorts of things. So for me personally, it has affected me a lot because what I do, a lot of what I do is interacting with people. Usually in this case, maybe I'd be visiting your school. I'd be visiting Rockridge, or I'd be visiting other schools. And so everything has turned virtual. So I've done a lot of presentations with students, mainly elementary and middle school, about just water education virtually, which I've really enjoyed, but it's definitely been a shift. And I'm not sure, and I don't think we know quite yet when we'll be able to go back into work or a sense of normality in person, of course. But that's where we are right now. It's still about 2/3 of our staff is working from home.
So staying with current events for a minute, obviously Texas has been a big deal. You hear a lot about the electrical grid, but I understand water has also been a big issue with pipes freezing and, people having to boil water. Have you guys, had to watch that closely, or do you feel like Loudoun's in a good position, or what's your thoughts on that?
Currently, we're in a great position, but we do, as part of my department, so I do a lot of the outreach with, I attend community events or talk to students. I have a coworker that manages a lot of our external communications, such as social media, our website. And so we try to really push certain messages depending on the season. So currently, one of the main messages that we're pushing is frozen pipes, and helping customers, making sure that their water meter doesn't freeze if we get really low temperatures, which does happen. And what a water meter is basically the pipe that is on the street to your home needs to connect to the pipe going to your home, right? And so there's an intersection there. And at that intersection, from the pipe on the road to the pipe to your home or any building, there is a meter crock, and basically it's a dial. And that's how we measure how much water is going to your home. And so we call that the meter crock or meter. And that's maybe about a foot to maybe a foot and a half deep. And that can sometimes freeze if it gets really cold. So our field service department Staff sometimes actually has to go physically and thaw out a meter because it's been frozen. So that tends to happen in winter time, of course. And so that's one of the main messages that we really try to push to get our customers to make sure that if they don't have water, we troubleshoot, and our customer relations department works to figure out if it's something that we've done to turn off the meter, if it's a possible frozen pipe. But thankfully, we're in a good place. We do have projects and plans for the future to have backup water sources. For example, if something were to happen where we had a natural disaster or if water wasn't easily accessible from the Potomac River, we have partnered with Luckstone, which is a company that has quarries in Ashburn. We have partnered with them to fill retired quarries with water once they have been done being used. So basically, it's a big giant hole in the ground that they've mined out of. And so slowly over a period of several years, we plan to fill at least one or two of those with water to be able to have a reservoir of water or a backup of water, if you can think of it that way. So that's thinking of future generations and where we are and where we're going, with being able to have water for everyone, because Loudoun County is such a fast growing county. It's incredible how fast it's grown. And I'm sure everyone has seen there's new high schools, new home developments, new shopping centers all the time. And it's continued to be that way for a while now, for many years. So there is a greater demand for water. And so we work closely with other utilities in our region, all the way to Washington, D.C., some on Maryland, Fairfax Water, which is our neighbor. We work very closely together because our water sources are sometimes the same. A lot of people depend on the Potomac River. So it's important that we keep close communication with what's going on in the region, anything related to water quality or the Chesapeake Bay. We stay in close communication, and that's really, really helpful.
So are there people at Loudoun Water whose job is just like strategic planning and thinking ahead based on the growth of the county, etc.?
Yes, definitely. So we do have a strategic plan, usually for the next 4 to 5 years, and it gets revisited, and it is public. So we've got lots of good information on our website about that, and how our rates work and everything else. But yes, whenever you have a water system, you have to think and plan for 50 years down the road. So what does our growth and community look like, and what do we expect it to be 50 years from now, or even 10 years from now? Because there is such a high demand for water in our growing region, we need to know if we need to expand a treatment plant or if we need to build a new treatment plant, which takes a very long time and lots of permits and lots of process to do that, and a lot of manpower to do that over an expand of, maybe a decade or two to be able to have the funds for it, and build out a new treatment system. So we do have to know in advance, analyze trends over years and projections for the growth of the county to make sure we have the right capacity.
So you've got like statisticians, etc., working on that. Okay, got it. Well, we have a couple of questions in the chat. Actually, the first one's a comment from Mr. Lucas. He dropped by to say hello to one of his favorite Stonebridge.
Hello.
Hey, Erika, just had to stop by and say hi.
And then we have a question from Ari on how often do you update service the water distribution infrastructure, and what does that process look like?
So how often do we update or service the water distribution infrastructure? So infrastructure in itself is a pretty fascinating topic, because in our region, Loudoun is relatively new in comparison to maybe Fairfax water, or even closer to the Chesapeake Bay, Washington, D.C. So we are, in comparison, also smaller than those areas. So we have learned a lot from, circumstances and lessons learned from utilities around us. So our infrastructure is relatively new. The oldest infrastructure that we have in our service area is probably Sterling, or the Sterling Park area. And so we have to inspect pipes, and we have our line maintenance department that regularly inspects pipes or checks on possible leaks for pipes. We use really cool technology also to check on pipes in our infrastructure. We have something called a CCTV truck. And what that is basically a truck where you have a camera on a little robot and you put it down the manhole, and the little robot, you can control it from above the ground in the truck. And the camera shows the inside of the pipe in live time. So we can see if there's a crack in the pipe, we can see if there's something that needs to be replaced or need to have some sort of repair. And so we're constantly doing that, making sure that we avoid having a water main break if possible. So we're constantly checking our infrastructure and the lifespan of the pipes.
So I know Loudoun Water has been a really great partner with Loudoun County Schools, and you guys participate in Job for a Day. And a lot of times, some of those students that participate in Job for a Day are able to turn that into capstone project and support that way. Are there any, I know this year's a little different with all that, opportunities for our students to, internships or, capstone, at least interview-wise?
So we have in the past, usually I know specifically there's like one internship program in the summer for high school students. We have a really good communication with our lab, for example. So we have had groups of students, or if there's a specific project regarding water quality, for example, or there's a student or a group of students working on a project that would like to use equipment in our laboratory. We have done things like that before. So when it comes to specific projects, we can definitely accommodate those things usually. We have had some requests within the last year, but unfortunately it's been very difficult, and some of them we have not been able to work for or be a resource, unfortunately, because of COVID, because staff in our lab is limited and it's very restricted on who can be at the lab. But usually, yes, usually we can provide, resources depending on specific projects, or we can do treatment plant tours and things of that sort.
Well, we have quite a few sophomores on this call, so I'm hoping next year with Job for a Day, they'll be able to do that and then potentially use it with their capstone. So
yeah, it's great. And this year was interesting. Sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say this year for Job for a Day, usually I think last year we had, or the year before we had usually it's 10 to 12 students. And this year we did about the same. We had 10 to 12 students, and based on the job description that they wanted to follow, they shadowed or talked to somebody in that department. But I think virtually it's also brought us some good opportunities, because more students can attend Job for a Day if it's virtual, or have those opportunities to talk to an expert in a topic that they're interested in. The downside, of course, is that you're not able to see things in person. So our lab, for example, you wouldn't be able to be there in person. And this year it was a shorter time span. It wasn't a full day, but hopefully in the future, my hope is that we could do some sort of hybrid, take advantage of virtual opportunities and also be able to do in person. So.
Great. All right, Venkat is asking, supposedly different areas get water with different properties in Northern Virginia. Is that because of the pipes or the reservoirs or the filtration system?
It could be any of those. So it depends which part of Northern Virginia. So most of our water does come from the Potomac River. There is a small area within our service area in Loudoun that gets their water service from Goose Creek. That's another source of water for us. There are different areas depending on what natural resource is close to them. One of the most common one outside of our central system is wells. Some people have a home that has water from a well. I used to live in a home in Ashburn, not far from, off of Route 7 in Ashburn, that had its own well. And so that's more not at all to do with our water central system, but more with the county, with permits and ways of getting water that way. So wells are very, very important. Some neighborhoods, or some what we call community systems, which are areas further out west in the county, which are not part of our central system, depend a lot of on well systems for their drinking water.
Have a hiring question for you. So soft skills, how would you like weigh soft skills versus education versus experience as you're, looking to hire people?
So specifically soft skills, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Just emotional IQ or being able to communicate effectively, both written, oral, some of the skills that are a little harder to teach versus technical skills.
So I think that's why internships and opportunities like that are really important. For us, it really just depends on which field, because there are so many, we have engineers, we have planners, we have people that work on more hands-on things that maybe they don't talk to people as much, or, they work within their team. For example, my team, I'm part of a 3-member team, so I do the outreach. My coworker does a lot of the background of the website and things like that. So different skills are necessary for different types of jobs. For me, for example, with my public relations background, it's really important because I'm talking to people a lot, and so different skills depend on which department.
Mm-hmm. I think personally speaking, with daughters, as well as hearing the students at school having to do those team projects, and then it's like, oh, nobody's doing their part.
Yeah.
I'm the only one doing it. But that really helps prepare you for everyday work life.
Right. And yeah, so I'm thinking of different clusters or parts or careers within the water world that you may not talk to anybody at all. You do your job. And, if you're working from home, I know that has also been very hard for some of our staff. For example, our engineering department are very used to being able to walk out of their office and talk to someone else about plans. And so they lay them out on the table, they talk about it. It takes a lot of communication to get a job done or a project completed. So it depends on which project you're working on, or like I said, which department. But those are tough, having to work with on a project with other staff or other types of personalities, other, rhythms of getting things done. But those are really important skills to become, a really good essential part of that team, and a team player are really, really important.
All right, we got another question. What exactly would be the day of an intern at Loudoun Water? Since we don't have much expertise, what would we actually work on?
So again, depends on the department. So for me, it would most likely be, or let's see, maybe we have had things like an electrician. So we've had for job per day, for example, with a specific person that they follow or shadow throughout the day. It would be less hands-on because an intern would be mostly watching, or it depends on type of internship. If it's like a job for a day, you're mostly shadowing because it's just for one day. But if it's like a 6-month internship or a summer internship, slowly you'd be able to have more responsibilities of how you're, learning about specific jobs. Most of the time, with most of the jobs that we provide for internships, it's shadowing because they're very subject specific, like an electrician or plumber, or somebody like a plant operator, or somebody working in the lab. Maybe if you like talking to people and you like to learn more about the backside of customer relations, listening to customer calls and solving problems with customers, looking at accounts. We have different systems of how we keep our customer communications and customer information. So it really just depends. Most of it most likely would be shadowing, but it's a lot of good information depending if that's your interest, and it's really important that you have, there's a door there or an opening for you to talk directly to someone who does that job. Because even if you're just shadowing, maybe you're not doing specifically what they're doing as an intern, you can ask questions. They're the experts in that topic or in that field. They can talk to you about how they got there and got their job, help you, give you guidance if you're interested in the same type of job.
Great. All right, do we have any more questions from the students? All right, well, we'll wrap this up. And Erika, we so appreciate your time and all the information you provided on Loudoun Water.
Of course, thank you. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. You've got my contact information or my email. So maybe in the future, I'm hoping that I'll definitely can do something like, we have educational tours. So if you're ever interested in doing that, we can provide tours of a little bit more of the background of what we do, as well as the importance of water. So.
Great. Thank you. Have a good night.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Bye,
Thank you,
everybody.
Erika.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.